Chapter 3.
As Mr. Granger inserted Draco's case into the mechanical contraption, it clamped down with a finality that made Draco whisper, "No," under his breath. He watched in fascinated horror, ensnared by its mechanical grip, as Hermione ushered him into the contraption itself. Inside, there were seats, and before he knew it, she secured a strap around him before settling next to the opposite window. "Surely, Hermione," he spoke in a low, anxious tone, "we aren't truly about to take a journey in this monstrosity." "Draco, don't be such a worrywart," she replied, a mix of affection and mild exasperation in her voice. "Weren't you the same boy who wandered into the forbidden forest without a second thought? Trust me, even if technology baffles you, I'll make sure you're safe." "It's your first time stepping beyond the wizarding realm, isn't it?" inquired a striking muggle woman with reddish-brown hair seated in front. Her eyes mirrored Hermione's so closely that their familial connection was undeniable, making Hermione seem like a changeling inadvertently placed in the Granger family. The creature under them rumbled to life, moving fitfully along the roadways. They were surrounded by other beasts, some charging ahead or lagging behind, crisscrossing paths like a chaotic race. Draco thought, absurd as it seemed, that clinging onto Potter as they fled fiendfire felt somehow safer. His hands gripped the door handle like a lifeline, his body swaying dangerously with each unpredictable movement of this metallic monstrosity. Hermione, wicked girl, was nearly in stitches beside him, chatting with her parents about the widespread ignorance of technology within the wizarding community, of which Muggle studies did little to cure. In Draco's opinion, creatures like this that had absconded with him from his known life hardly deserve study. They ought to be eliminated. Eventually, the beast halted, though it felt like eternity to Draco, time enough for him to have aged half a century from his ordeal. Hermione said around 15 minutes had elapsed and bade him exit. But the beast resisted his attempts at escape until Hermione leant over to operate some lever or switch. "It needs to be unlocked first, Draco." She sighed and snickered again when the stubborn seatbelt still held him captive. "You've got to unfasten it. Welcome to Hampstead." Pressing a release button, the belt slackened, practically springing away as if sentient. "Why doesn't it release automatically once it's finished its task?" he questioned, eyeing it with distrust. With a gentle nudge from Hermione, Draco was astounded to witness Mr. Granger retrieve his luggage from the jaws of the beast, thinking it lost forever. "It's returned my belongings," he exclaimed jubilantly. "Maybe it likes me." Taking a cue from his third-year lessons, he petted the beast's surface appreciatively. "Good, obedient creature," he murmured softly. The expressions on Hermione's parents' faces were a mix of bewilderment and amusement. Hermione herself vacillated between embarrassment and glee. "You're like someone from another time," she teased. "What?" he recoiled, panic flaring at being discovered, facing the impossible task of explaining himself. Astounded by Hermione's quick wit, he hadn't imagined she could unravel his secrets so easily. "I just meant, you're so timid around technology. You act like a character out of a historical film," she said, linking arms with him as they strolled toward an unassuming 3-story home. It seemed modest, albeit not as destitute as he imagined the Weasley house might be, yet he resolved to conduct himself with grace. As they entered, Draco's gaze caught on a cabinet brimming with stationary images of Hermione and similar individuals with bushy hair and distinct teeth, presumably her Muggle relatives. Why so many pictures of Hermione? Because she's the Soul Witch? Specially commissioned because of her status. Mr. and Mrs. Granger exchanged looks, as if unsure whether Draco was jesting, confused, or lost in enchantment. "Oh, Draco," Hermione said for what felt like the umpteenth time. "These are photos. They don't move like our pictures in the wizarding world." Striving for manners, Draco pasted on a smile. "They're very becoming," he fibbed. Rightfully, a grand tribute to Hermione, indeed. This made Hermione collapse into giggles, her attempts to suppress them with her arms futile. Intrigued, Draco examined the Hermione shrine closer, noting her unchanged appearance over the years, albeit tinier and with more unruly hair. "Should I offer something to your shrine as a guest?" Draco inquired, curiosity piqued. Hermione, still stifling laughter, seemed unsure whether to answer. Despite feeling underappreciated, Draco shifted his priority to securing a meal, curious about what the Grangers might serve. "Might we eat soon?" "I'm quite famished," he addressed kindly, offering a charming smile. His query lightened the mood, and the Grangers seemed relieved by normalcy until Draco nudged Hermione and boasted, "Imagine Ron's face when I tell him your family creature took a liking to me." Dinner was roast chicken, not the most luxurious fare, but Draco lavished praise upon Mrs. Granger's cooking, recalling it had to be better than the rations he envisioned were served to Potter by his appalling Muggle guardians. These Muggles clearly lacked the affluence necessary for house elves or even machines to serve them, corroborating once more that magic surpassed any device. Draco dreaded the day Hermione might entertain otherwise. "So, Draco," Mr. Granger began, "I regret your parents were too occupied to meet at the Leaky Cauldron. Meeting them would have been a pleasure. But maybe in August, while shopping at Diagon Alley?" Each word grew Draco's unease at imagining his father joining the informalities. "You first encountered Hermione at Hogwarts, not before?" Mr. Granger probed. Draco shook his head, taking a bite of sweet potatoes he could barely swallow. "No, at the school. Gryffindor shared double potions with Slytherin." Explaining was hopeless as the Grangers exchanged puzzled looks, though he preferred their reaction to Potter's kin. "Mom, Dad, don't you recall how I've mentioned the Hogwarts houses?" "Before my first year," Hermione reminded, somewhat impatiently setting her spoon down. Embarrassment, perhaps, for Draco imagined even worse accommodations, fearing it might rival Azkaban conditions. Yet it was paradise in contrast. "There are 4. Gryffindor for me, Slytherin for Draco," she reiterated. "Of course," Mr. Granger replied after a pause, casting Hermione a light-hearted glance. "Wasn't Slytherin the—" Draco needn't hear more to discern the implication. "The notorious house?" Draco inquired with an arched brow. Then she has taught you its reputation." Sensing tension, Hermione interjected, "Shall we be excused?" But Draco was unmoving. "And what might Hermione have said of Slytherin?" Draco ventured, tone mild but with an air of underlying curiosity. Too clever by half, the Grangers, with Hermione's prodding, led him upstairs to a guest room, which in pristine condition bested the Azkaban Draco once fretted was his destination. Though static, the painting of a sailboat and the elusive electricity playing in the walls were daunting, but preferable to Dementis. With a satisfied shrug, Draco set his wand near as a precaution. "I'm sorry about today," Hermione apologized, appearing at the threshold, regret etched on her face. "I've assured them that Slytherins aren't evil, especially you." Her somber attitude sparked a flicker of contrariness within Draco. "What? While unfamiliar with these contraptions, haven't I kept the statute of secrecy intact? Avoided troubling your parents or damaging your shrine? I even adhere to this peculiar garb," he mentioned, gesturing at the striped sweatshirt adorned with a logo he could scarcely comprehend. "Dad chose it. He supports Arsenal," she clarified. "That's a football club. Look here, it's marked Arsenal Football Club on your back. I assumed you'd appreciate it, given your fondness for Quidditch." "Quite lovely," Draco responded courteously, though it was evident he was clueless about the matter. Later, Mr. Granger would elucidate, upon Draco's hesitant inquiry, that football was a Muggle sport mimicking Quidditch, but in a more rudimentary form, featuring just a single goal instead of 3 hoops and 1 ball, which mostly stayed earthbound and didn't exhibit self-propelled movement. The next day, Mr. Granger settled in the living room for something he referred to as the early kickoff, and Draco joined him with an inquisitive air. This Muggle game seemed heavily reliant on kicking. Additionally, Draco was captivated by the portal-like appliance Mr. Granger called a television, a device Dean Thomas had once mentioned. It appeared to be a long wizard photograph that could show action occurring elsewhere simultaneously. Hermione descended for breakfast later and chuckled in delight upon noticing Draco on the couch, watching Mr. Granger attempt to elucidate the offside rule. "Look at you two," she remarked warmly. "Dad always tries to get Mum and me to watch football or kick a ball around in the garden, but his attempts never spark our interest. He often wishes for a son to share in these activities." Puzzled, Draco glanced at Mr. Granger. "Are females barred from this sport?" He couldn't fathom why it wouldn't be as suitable for both genders as Quidditch, particularly since Mr. Granger had explained why only men appeared on the field. "Of course not," Hermione replied emphatically. "They just compete separately. I simply never found it intriguing, so I didn't partake." Draco remained confused. "Why did you not compel her to engage with this sport?" he queried Mr. Granger, who seemed equally puzzled. "What penalty did you impose for her refusal to comply?" Mr. Granger looked amused until he discerned Draco's sincerity, at which point his demeanor shifted to one of sympathetic understanding, causing Draco to feel uncomfortable. "Draco, Hermione can decide her own interests. Whatever she pursues, we'll support her fully." "Breakfast is ready," Mrs. Granger announced, yet she allowed Draco and Mr. Granger to bring their meals back to the couch to continue their viewing. Despite finding it challenging to comprehend, it was clear Mr. Granger backed the red team, Arsenal, albeit Draco was reassured that they did not actually wield Muggle firearms, which was perplexing. He grasped the concept when the ball was struck into the expansive net, causing both the armed Muggles and the myriad of red-clad supporters to erupt with enthusiasm as though someone had captured the snitch. Apparently, Draco had participated disrespectfully in Mr. Granger's celebratory high-five since Mr. Granger raised Draco's hand and unexpectedly struck it. Draco made an additional effort to express his congratulations post-match, where Arsenal had triumphed over something called Manchester United. This conclusion came merely with the lapse of a time period. "Congratulations, Mr. Granger," Draco pronounced. "Your team excelled at kicking." Mr. Granger laughed heartily, along with Mrs. Granger and Hermione, who were on the opposite side of the room, engaged in a card game. It was strange observing a family linger together post-meal, as opposed to withdrawing to their individual rooms, perhaps wary that the mysterious wizard might make off with their furnishings. "Might I inquire, Mr. Granger," Draco asked politely, "about the cause of your displeasure?" Mr. Granger seemed baffled again. "I'm not upset, Draco. That was enjoyable, wasn't it?" "I thought so," Draco said with a dignified air. "But then you unceremoniously struck my hand. Is it impertinent to ask what behavior merited such chastisement, so I might avoid it in future?" He pondered if it was connected to his previous disrespect towards the Hermione shrine. He hadn't realized her significance among her Muggle kin. All three looked at him in blank disbelief until Mr. Granger began to laugh. "Oh, you mean the high five?" Draco eyed him skeptically, and Mr. Granger raised his hand. "Darling, give me a high five," he instructed, and to Draco's astonishment, Hermione obliged, replicating the gesture Mr. Granger had performed with Draco's. "See, it's a common gesture. It signifies congratulations or camaraderie." Draco concealed his dismay.
"My,
how quaint," he remarked with a forced smile. Hermione rolled her eyes. "Come on, there's no harm," she urged, holding her hand out until Draco reluctantly mirrored the gesture, cautious not to hit too hard. Stronger. This time, the audible slap was somewhat satisfying, and Hermione appeared content. "That's it, Draco. Don't worry, I won't expect you to do that in public." "Did you call him Frankenstein?" Mr. Granger inquired with a grin. "That's one of your mother's favorite films, Mione." Thus, on Draco's second night in the untamed lands of Hampstead, he found himself in front of the Muggle box again, this time with the entire Granger family, viewing the extended motion picture tale of Frankenstein. Proudly, Draco already knew the name belonged to the doctor, not the monster, although most muggles seemed unaware. The film was strangely riveting, though he landed himself in trouble towards the end. Why the nickname Frankenstein, Draco? Mrs. Granger wondered. You seem a fine, courteous young man. Is it sarcastic? Draco and Hermione shot each other nervous looks. Clearly, Hermione hadn't shared everything with her family. There was a humorous rumor about Draco's so-called experiments, likening them to Frankenstein, Hermione quickly explained. But, naturally, Draco wasn't involved in anything of the kind. Those things wouldn't be magically possible. I've done something vaguely akin, Draco interjected, overcome by intellectual curiosity. I can conjure and animate dummies for curse practice. Even perfected the Langlock curse, which was tricky. The film's idea is plausible. Numerous golems exist. Incorporating human flesh presents the challenge. Yet, flesh modification potions to harden the flesh might result in a golem formed from human bodies. Ouch. Hermione kicked him sharply in the shin, with force rivaling Mr. Granger's expert kickers. Draco means that it's unrelated to him. Surprisingly, Mr. and Mrs. Granger relaxed. That's reassuring, Mrs. Granger said. Glad it wasn't a derogatory moniker, related to being different. Because of who you are. You told them? Draco whispered to Hermione, feeling exposed. Hermione appeared unapologetic. I had to, she stated matter-of-factly. Or, they wouldn't let me stay at the manor alone because we're 12 now, and you're a boy. A room together, here, would have been out of the question. They're quite protective, you see. But I explained you only like boys, and they're fine with that, Draco. Indeed, Uncle Gary appeared in several still photos with Hermione, alongside another evidently gay man and an adopted son, all prominent figures within the so-called Hermione Shrine. It aligned with Hermione's initial account of her family's tolerance, yet he felt uneasy. He may have been outed at Hogwarts and probably any professor who cared for gossip, but not many dare discuss it openly around him. We certainly don't condone prejudice here, Mrs. Granger agreed warmly. But I understand there are many ignorant people who can be hurtful, and I never want such a sweet young man to face that. It's commendable you've embraced who you are so young, Mr. Granger added, seriously. It can't have been easy. Have classmates troubled you over this? Draco snorted quietly, drawing a chastising glance from Hermione. He was more of a tormentor than a target in the school's social hierarchy. The thought of students bullying him was laughable, given his ominous reputation and family name. No, not really. Hermione offered an alternative reasoning. Draco is, pretty formidable, she said softly. No one would dare bother him. Good, Mr. Granger commented, giving Draco a friendly pat. Stand your ground. Be yourself. We're thrilled Hermione has a friend as courageous as you. Considering Draco had been outed by Hermione's housemates and retaliated by cursing one, this was indeed a gracious interpretation, but Draco had no intention of correcting it. Thank you, sir, he replied sincerely, earning them a round of hot chocolate topped with extra marshmallows before bedtime.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!